iPad 101. What I will be covering in the next 50 minutes is the physical components of an iPad, turning on, basic operations, how you can use the keyboard, connecting to the internet, making some standard settings, the 3 iPad quick access features, and turning off the iPad. Let's start with taking a look at the back of your iPad. Up here at the top in the corner is your sleep-wake switch. And there is a difference between sleep-wake and off. In order to make the sleep-wake switch work, you press it once and release it. That's a quick depress and it goes to sleep, or a quick depress and it wakes up. If you hold it down for about 5 or 6, 7 seconds, then what comes up on your iPad is a screen prompt that says slide to off. Also on the back of the iPad, we have a camera that's used for taking pictures. It usually runs around 5 megapixels. On the side, we have a side switch, which you can use to control either the orientation of your screen or muting the sound. We'll cover that a little bit later. You also have some volume buttons for increasing or decreasing the volume that's coming out of your speakers. If your iPad also has phone capabilities, then you'll have some kind of SIM tray. Shown here is a nano SIM tray. Down at the bottom of the iPad, you have speakers on each side of the connector. The connector that goes to the iPad is one of 2 types, either a lightning connector, which is very small, doesn't matter which way you plug it in, or you have a 30-pin connector, and a 30-pin connector can only plug in one way. Up at the top, you have twin microphones, and at the very top, on the right-hand side of the picture, of course, is your headset jack, where you can plug in earbuds. That's what Windows call Windows. That's what Apple calls their little plug-ins for your ears to hear. Earbuds. Taking a look at the front of your iPad, across the top, you have a status bar. You have some apps icons that show up on your screen. You have a home button at the bottom. Across the bottom you have a task bar. That's this area right here. Then of course, if you have activated it in settings, you can have multi-touch display. And up the top in the center, of course, is your FaceTime high-density camera for doing selfies. So let's start now by going ahead and turning on the iPad. When you do the sleep-wake push button, and it brings up your iPad. It turns it on. Now I'm going to switch over to my display from my iPad. And as you can see, I have a program on my iPad called Air Server, which allows me to display my iPad onto my computer. So if we push the home button, we can bring up our icons on the face, and as you can see, I have some icons and I have some folders on my home page, and these two little dots down here tell me that I have two home pages, and I'm in the one over here, and if I swipe I go to the other page, and as you can see, the little dot at the bottom changed also. Going back to my first home page, if in fact you bring up the iPad originally, which I'm going to do now, you have to slide to unlock, and you should have a passcode. A passcode protects your iPad from somebody using it who has picked it up when you left it out of your sight. If you don't have a passcode, then you take the chance of somebody stealing the information off your iPad when it's lost, stolen, or strayed. You can enter a passcode by going to Settings. You can turn the passcode off. You can change the passcode. You can have a simple 4-digit passcode like I just showed, or you can have a very complicated passcode depending on how you manage those things in Settings. And if we want to do the passcode thing, we go to Settings. By touching the Settings icon, we go down to Passcode. And of course, because I have a simple passcode, I must enter it before it'll allow me to do anything. And here you can see where you turn the passcode off, change the passcode, if you turn simple passcode off, you can have a complex passcode. Okay. Basic operations. iPad 101. As I've already stated, I have some icons on my desktop that I'm pointing out with my mouse. And then I have some folders up here on my display. And the folders contain more than one icon. That's how I keep the number of pages, home pages that I have, down to a minimum. You can have a maximum of 11 home pages on your iPad, and you can have a maximum of 224 icons. If I want to open an icon, I touch it. I call it a tap, and I tap it to open. As an example, Microsoft Word. I touched it, I tapped it, it opens, and oh, by the way, Microsoft Word 2013 is free for download onto your iPad or your iPhone. Now, when I want to get back out of this, I hit my home button and I go back to my home page. When you open an app, it is stored away by the Apple software so that you can go back to it quickly. In order to go back to it quickly, you take your home button and depress it twice quickly. And I get the multitasking screen. And the multitasking screen shows on the bottom those things that I have done with my apps. It shows on the top my most recent contacts. My daughter just called me a couple minutes ago. And in the center, it shows all of the apps that I have recently used, and I can do this by going back to an app that I was at earlier by just scrolling across like I'm doing now and then touching that app and it'll open. Now, apps stay open in the background, and they can, in fact, be using up some of your resources in the background. So a good thing to do every so often is double tap your home button and then close out the apps that you have open. You put your finger or stylus right here in the middle of the app, hold it for a second and drag up slowly. Hold it for a second and drag up slowly. That's how you get rid of apps that Apple has stored away in the background, which may in fact be taking up some of your resources. Apps that play audio in the background, apps that track your location in the background, apps that listen for incoming VoIP, Voice over Internet Protocol, calls are in the background, newsstand apps are in the background, and apps that receive continuous updates may also be in the background and using up some of your resources. So again, occasionally you want to go and completely shut down the apps that are in the background so that they're not using your resources. Going back to my home page, I want to move apps around or I want to delete them. And in order to move any apps around on a page or to delete them, you have to touch and hold an app until they all start to wiggle. I'm going to pick on podcast right here. And I'm going to touch and hold, and now they're wiggling. The apps that you see wiggling that have an X in the corner of the app, in the left-hand corner of the app, are apps that you have downloaded onto your machine, onto your iPad, and you can touch that X and get rid of it off of your device. When you do that, the app goes to your iCloud account. You notice that podcast does not have an X in the corner, so that means that this was given to me by Apple. Newsstand was given to me by Apple. Clock, etc. If I want to change the position of an app, I want Lookout to be over where Microsoft Word is. While they're wiggling, I put my finger on Lookout. I take it around, and then move it over here. Now I've changed the position of it. You can do that with any of your apps. Across the bottom of your iPad, you can have a maximum of 6 apps. When you try to put number 7 app down there, it doesn't work. It won't go. If you want to stop the apps from wiggling, push your home button once and they stop wiggling. So I've just covered how you can move apps around or you can delete them. If you want to change an app from one home page to another, you touch them until they start to wiggle. Then you slowly move the app over towards the pages you want it to go on, and when you get to the edge, go real slow and it goes over to the other page. And now you can see I have apps over here. Podcast used to be over here, but now it's over here. And that's how you move apps from one page to the next. Now, if you want to make folders, and this is a folder, the gray box, this is a folder, this is a folder, this is a folder, all the rest on this page are apps. If I go back over here, you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 folders. All right, so how do we make a folder? Very simply, we have to touch again until they start to wiggle. And now I want to combine one app on top of the other to make a folder. I take podcasts, I move it over, I put it right on top of Evernote. See the grazing? Now I have made a folder. And up at the top, you'll notice the folder's name is Productivity, but there's an X here. So if I touch that X, just tap it, I can put in any name for this folder that I want. E-V-E-R. P-O-D. EverPod. And then I say on my keyboard down here, I touch Done, and now the name of that folder is EverPod. Hit my home button, tap my screen, and now I have a folder that's called EverPod, and it has these two apps in it. If I don't want that folder to have those two apps in it, I want them separate again. Again, I touch any app and hold until they wiggle. I open up the folder that I want to change. I take podcasts, I touch and hold it, and I very slowly move it outside of the folder. And now podcast is outside the folder. I touch the folder where Evernote is in. I grab Evernote and I move it very slowly outside the folder. And now I've gotten rid of that folder, and my two apps, Podcast and Evernote, are separate again. Pushing my home button, I go back to my home page, and my apps are no longer wiggling. Now, as you look at this home page, you see some red circles with a number in it on the upper right-hand corner of the apps. Down here on my status bar, under the Mail app, the 2 is in what they call a badge. The red badge shows the number 2, and that means I have 2 emails that I have not read. Over here at the App Store, I have a 4 in a badge, and that means that there are 4 apps that need updates. So the red badge with a number in it tells you that something within that app or folder needs your attention. As an example, if I go ahead and I touch the social, then we see that the 2 moves from the corner of the folder over to FaceTime, and that means I've had 2 FaceTime calls that I have not paid attention to. When you want to download a new app, you have to go to the App Store. If you use some other app store besides Apple's App Store, you are opening yourself to some malware. So I would be extremely careful if you want to do that. I have never, ever downloaded anything on my iPad or on my iPhone from anything except the Apple App Store. To download an app, you touch the app, you tap it, and the first thing that comes up is advertisements. It always comes up that way because that's what the App Store is all about. And then after a few seconds, you can see that the little 4 down here appeared, and it in fact says you got 4 updates that you need to do to your apps. So if I go down there and tap on that, it's going to bring up the 4 apps that I need updates on. And you can see that down at the bottom of the list is the last 2 apps that I did updates on. I updated LastPass on April 28th, and I updated Facebook on April 25th. My personal recommendation is that when an app comes up and it says it needs updating, that you go ahead and do it. And so I can start each one of these apps updating by simply touching it, and it starts an update. And you can update all your apps simultaneously, and you don't have to stay there. You can leave it and it'll go on by itself automatically. Now let's go over to features. If you are looking for a specific app, then you need to use the search bar, which is up in the right corner. And if you touch the search bar, of course, your keyboard's going to come up. And now I'm going to put in the name of an app that I want to look at and maybe download. I'm going to use the example Lookout, which is a mobile security program. I use it on my iPad and iPhones. And when it comes up with a suggested list, I like Lookout Mobile Security. So I tap that line, and it brings up these different things that are available in the same category as Lookout Mobile Security. Now, let me explain these blocks that you see here and what they mean and what the difference of them is. Okay. When you bring up a specific app and it says open, that means you already have it on your machine. It's already on your device. And so all you have to do is open it. If you have a symbol of a cloud with a down arrow on it, this means that, in fact, you once had this app on your device, but you deleted it, and it deleted up into your cloud account, your iCloud account. And so you don't have to pay for it again, or if you got it free, that's fine and dandy. You can just bring it back down into your device. If you see the word get, like here, that means that the app is free. And the plus up in the corner means that the app will work on other mobile devices, like an iPod or an iPhone. Sometimes you will see a price. And when you see a price in there, then that means that this is the price you're going to pay to get the app. And sometimes you'll see this little in-app purchases right here, which means whether you get it free or you paid a one-time price for the app, they're also, while you're running the app, going to send you messages or advertisements to make some purchases of additional software. All of these things came about because of lawsuits with Apple, because young people were not understanding what it meant, and when their parents got the bill, they got pretty excited. So those are the symbols that you see, and that you can, in fact, go to settings and make sure that somebody who doesn't have authority to use your credit card on the Apple ID is blocked from buying apps. That can be set up in settings. Again, if you want to uninstall an app from your device, then what you have to do is touch and hold until they wiggle, and then you can uninstall any app that has an X in the corner. All right, next let's talk about the keyboard. And I'm going to push my home button once to stop the apps from jiggling, wiggling, making motion. If I open up a word processor like Microsoft Office, and again this is free for your device, and I say I want to work on some kind of document, as soon as I touch that document and get a blinking cursor, then of course my keyboard comes up. And the keyboard is really handy. There's some tricks of the trade that you can use for the keyboard. I'm not going to cover all those. All I'm going to do is cover the basics. It is a standard QWERTY keyboard. It contains some obscure characters, which I'll show you in a minute. And where you see the return key down here, this changes depending on what you're doing. Sometimes it'll say join, sometimes it'll say go, sometimes it'll say search. And in the case of just working with a word processor, it says return. So if I hit the return key, my blinking cursor goes down to the next line. I want to type in HELLO. I want it to be all caps. I put in, hit the space bar. I hit the double arrow, or the arrow twice, and now everything will be caps. HELLO. Okay. Hit the space bar twice, and I get a period, and it's ready for the next capital letter. Now, if I want to do numbers, I have to hit the key down here in the corner, which gives me numbers, and also it gives me an undo. If I want to take out the last thing I typed, I can hit undo and it'll take it out. But I can also put in numbers. And there's a few symbols, etc. here. If I want more symbols, then I hit the key right there. Let me go back and show you again. This key right here on either side, and it brings up brackets and different signs, etc. Okay? And I can use that. If I want my keyboard to disappear, then I'm going to hit the key down in the lower right-hand corner, and my keyboard disappears. And if I need it back again, I tap my document, and it comes back. There's plenty of shortcuts, and you can make your own shortcuts when you're using the keyboard. I'm going to quickly show you how to do that. Go back to your home page, go to Settings, go to General, scroll up till where you get to Keyboard, open Keyboard, where you see Shortcuts, open Shortcuts, and you can make up your own shortcuts. And anytime you type those, what you type is over here, and what you get is over here. So if I type LOL, it'll say lots of love. LOLD, lots of love, Dad. OMW, etc. So these are the keyboard shortcuts that I have made, and you can use them in Mail or when you're working on a document. It doesn't matter. They work both ways. Going back, I'm now going to go to Reminders, and I'm going to say down here, LOLD. And as you can see, lots of love, Dad showed up right here. So I tap that and it replaces it. Lots of love, Dad. So that's how the shortcuts work. Get rid of my keyboard, touch my home button, and go back. Now, let's talk about connecting to the internet. And this can be tricky sometimes. When you want to get on the internet, you open up Settings, and you go up to Wi-Fi. And when you touch Wi-Fi, your device is automatically going to look for Wi-Fi that's available within range. When you're doing that, if you have a little padlock like you see right here, that means that this Wi-Fi network requires a passphrase. And I have to know what the passphrase is. I'm on Linksys, and so it has connected. I get a little check mark right there that said it is connected. Linksys shows up over here, and my signal strength shows up here in the corner. If I don't want Linksys anymore, I can touch the I, the circle I over here on the other side, and it brings up, and I can say forget this network, and it'll drop that network. Also, if you want to know what the IP address is for that network, it shows up here. Going back, every time I'm in Settings, if I want to go back to the previous page, I have to go for the little arrow up there in the corner. I touch that and I go back. So that's how you connect. Once you connect to a device with your iPad, let's say at McDonald's, etc., every time you go back to that same McDonald's, you're going to automatically reconnect. Once you connect down at the clubhouse or at the library or at the local college, when you go back, it's going to automatically reconnect, unless you say, forget this network. All right, let's move on to settings. As you can see, I have settings on my taskbar across the bottom, so it is available to me at all times. And I want to cover a couple settings that you should be aware of. First off, let's go to Settings and let's go to General. And while I'm in General, I want to touch About. Over here on this side, I want to touch About. So I tap on the About line. And up comes everything I need to know about my iPad. The name there is a name that will show up when, in fact, you connect your iPad to your computer. If you do so, it'll come up and say Jere's iPad. As you notice, I have 0 songs and 0 videos on my iPad. I have 142 photos, 24 applications, and the capacity of my iPad is 27.4 gigabytes. Now, I purchased a 32 gigabyte iPad, but what's available to me to use after Apple takes what they need is 27.4. And with the 24 apps that I have on there, actually what's available to me right now is 21.2 gigabytes. Also, you can see the version number. This is the iOS software version. Apple OS operating system, software version 8.3. The next two items you need to write down and keep somewhere else besides on your iPad or your iPhone. It's the model number, and those model numbers will tell you how many gigabytes. If you look them up on the internet, they'll tell you how many gigabytes your device has, and the serial number. And right after that, they call it Wi-Fi address, but it's really your MAC number, assigned by the factory. Your MAC address, assigned by the factory. Your Bluetooth address, assigned by the factory. Why do you need to write down the model and serial number? If your device becomes lost, stolen, or strayed, having this information separate from your device will help you to recover it, especially when you're talking to the police. 23.1% of advertised storage capacity is consumed by the operating system. 23%. So we're finished with about. Please write those numbers down. If you want to look at the legal aspect of everything, it's right there. I'm going to go back up to General up here at the corner and touch on the arrow. And now I want to go down to use of the side switch. So I'm going to scroll up and I'm losing, there it is. Use of the side switch, I'm sorry. Right here, use of the side switch. And you notice you have two combinations. You can have a mute. So my side switch is set up so that I can mute. Meaning, if I'm playing music and somebody comes in and wants to talk to me, I can reach up and hit the side switch and mute the music and not interrupt. Lock rotation. If I want to have my side switch control lock rotation, either being on or off, I just touch it. The check mark went up to lock rotation, and now the side switch is controlling lock rotation. If you remember, the side switch is over there on the side of your iPad next to the volume buttons up and down. Auto lock. I'm going to scroll up a little bit and go to auto lock. A lot of people new to the iPad can't figure out why it shuts off and goes to sleep. I shouldn't say shuts off. Why it goes to sleep after 2 minutes. That's because they have the factory setup is that if you're not touching the iPad, using anything on it for 2 minutes, it'll automatically go to sleep. And then you have to unlock it to bring it back up. As you can see, there are different selections here. I use 15 minutes because I also am concerned about my battery being discharged if I select never. But I spend some time talking about iPads, so 15 minutes works for me. My recommendation is that you use 5 minutes as your auto lock. Gestures. There are significant different gestures to be used on your iPad. And we need to go to multitasking gestures here, and I have it turned on, and as you can see, then it says use 4 or 5 fingers to pinch, swipe left or right for the apps. Additionally, what you're going to learn through experience is there is significant differences between tap, touch and hold, okay? There's differences between drag, slide, and flick. Drag is slow, swipe is normal, medium speed, and flick is a real fast. Finger spread, fingerprint, pinch, and double tap all do different things for your iPad. So you need to take a look at those and practice them. There is a difference between touch and hold and touch and tap. And tapping harder does not make it work. So be careful. Don't punch your iPad harder because that's not going to make it any better. The last 3 things I want to go over are what I call the quick access features of your iPad, and then we'll show you how to turn it off. The first of the quick access is you need to go off screen all the way up here to the top of your iPad, put your stylus or finger down and drag down slowly. And what you drag down is your notification screen. And I have notifications set up in settings so that I have things for today, and I have my reminders show up. And if I want other notifications, I touch here at the top where you see the bar notifications. I touch that, and it switches over to my FaceTime, my reminders, and my mail. Okay, and so you can go to settings under notifications, and you can set up whatever you want to see on your notifications. I use this a lot because it keeps me up to date as to what's going on in the world around me and where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to do. To get rid of notifications, quick access, hit the home button. Also, when you go to notifications and settings and you want to set this stuff up, then of course you can notifications. Set them up for messages, iMessages, reminders, calendars, Game Center, photos, FaceTime, etc., etc., etc. Every one of your apps that you have on your device that will do something to notify you, you can either include it or do not include it. Notice that I have do not include Facebook, Instant Video, or OneDrive into my notifications. And when you select one of these notifications, then of course you can say, I want a banner, I want an alert, which if you have a banner, the banner appears at the top of the screen and then goes away after a couple seconds. An alert stays on the screen until you take action, or I want nothing for my messages. And then you can select a sound. Ooh, I just got a woot. And then APCUG conference. Those are alerts that I'm getting from my email. So now I go back to notifications, and I go back to, and again, drag down from the top, and you get your notifications screen. Go to settings, set it up. Second one, control panel. A quick access control panel is available on your iPad. And again, you have to go off screen and drag up from the bottom. And there's your control panel. And your control panel has all these different controls on it. These controls here are for when you're playing music. Fast forward, back. This is your volume. This is your brightness. Here's a timer clock. Here's your camera. Lock rotation. Airplane mode, turning off both your Wi-Fi and your Bluetooth. Watch, I touch airplane mode and both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth go off. I turn off and they both come back on. All right. This is a do not disturb, meaning if phone calls or other things come in, don't disturb me. I'm in a meeting. Just record them and let me go on. And as you can see, I have AirPlay down here, and AirPlay comes up, and I lost my signal. Okay, there you go. All right, AirPlay comes up
Jere,
and
allows me to
put what's on my iPad.
Jere, this is David. We're to let you know we're running out of time here. So
computer. So
okay, thank you.
Notification down from the top.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just about finished. I got one more thing. All right. Notifications down from the top. Control panel up from the bottom. And the third quick access is Spotlight Search. Go into the middle of the iPad, between some icons, touch, and drag down slowly. Up pops your keyboard and your Spotlight Search. And Spotlight Search will search your iPad, the internet, or anything else you want to for whatever you put in there, such as GLOVES. And it says Wikipedia. Ooh, that's bringing up the news about the fight tonight. Men's gloves, search the web, search Wikipedia. If you have a lot of different apps on your iPad, then you can use this Spotlight Search to find them. See, it says Lookout. I have it on there. It's a suggested website, and it'll search Wikipedia if I want to do so. Getting rid of Spotlight Search, hit my home button, and now if I want to, I can turn my iPad off, and I do that by pushing and holding the wake sleep button.